radio and TV program, The David Pakman Show. And I wanted to talk to David Pakman. He is a beta male. David Pakman. He is a beta male. Some beta males. David Pakman. He is a beta male. David Pakman. He is a beta male. Some beta males.
Can you remind the audience, when you talk about being a beta male and being an alpha male, what are we talking about here?
There are males, most men today, male, they think and act like a woman. They're emotional, they are mentally off, they have no logic. And that's a beta male. They go along with homosexuality.
Whoa, Jesse, we got it. That's a lot.
LGBTQ.
That's a lot.
They agree with everything that's raw. Abortion, they think and act just like a woman. A beta male does. But another beta male doesn't, because he's a logical thinking. And they're controlled by the darkness of David Pakman. He is a beta male. David Pakman. He is a beta male. Some beta male. David Pakman. He is a beta male. David Pakman. He is a beta male. Some beta male. David Pakman. He is a beta male. David Pakman. He is a beta male. Some beta male. David Pakman. He is a beta male. David Pakman. He is a beta male. Some beta male. David, you're not here to communicate. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to let you go. It's a waste of time to talk to you. We're not communicating. You're acting like an idiot.
Because you're asking bizarre questions.
You're
and not
acting like an
any.
idiot, and you're wasting my time. I appreciate you coming. All right, thank you for coming. Goodbye. Goodbye. Let him know. That's a progressive vote. All men who are progressive, or males who are progressive, are weak people. They are weak people, and why have these people on? It doesn't even make sense.
In suit, I know of a guy who fits that bill, a progressive with political will. Watch David Pakman Show, see your political knowledge grow. Sign up for membership now for the bonus show that's best in town.
Who's the current president of the United States?
Who's the current president? Well, I guess it's a funny question.
Watch David Pakman Show, see your political knowledge grow. Sign up for membership now for the bonus show that's best in town.
Well, you tell me, is there a president right now, I guess?
Well, I'd rather not answer that. How's that?
Watch David Pakman Show, see your political knowledge grow. Sign up for membership now for the bonus show.
I've been growing this one huge pepper all summer. It's time to pluck it.
Sign up for membership now for the bonus show that's best in town.
It's a pirate's life, my lad!
There's a story that I know that I heard from the David Pakman Show. He brought some things to light, things that did seem out of sight. And now I take it where I go, whether it be to and fro. Every time I hear that theme song ring, it makes me wanna sing that catchy thing. It goes la 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 la.
The mangoes.
I love mangoes too.
9 cents. Okay. Now that we are up under a Biden's regime, my bag of mangoes now costs $11.
That seems like a pretty good deal. A bag of mangoes. Aren't mangoes like $3 each? That's it. I want what, $8 or $11. That sounds good.
The American people alive. And highway robbery is what you're doing. Bring my mangoes back down. My bag of mangoes. My bag of mangoes.
Mangoes?
My bag of mangoes. Bring my mangoes back down. Raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of fruit. Bring my mangoes back down.
The Wisconsin crowd identified with the mangoes.
Unfortunately affected the American people. Don't want me to be healthy. Don't want me to be healthy. And highway robbery is what you're doing. Don't raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of fruit. Don't raise the price of fruit.
Mangoes?
All right. Well, another debate today that could relate to who gets to decide who has won a state in 2024. Now, that's kind of unusual language, right? You might be saying, sir, you're making me tear up. What do you mean? Who gets to decide? The voters decide, don't they? Well, yes, the voters should decide. This may be radical, but my view is the candidate that gets the most votes in a state should get the electoral votes of that state. That's my view. Okay. In Pennsylvania, with Doug Mastriano's candidacy, and in Georgia with Brian Kemp's, although let's be honest, Kemp did stop short of straight up stealing it for Trump. In fact, you could argue he was part of the reason Trump didn't steal Georgia. But things can change very, very quickly with these extremist Republicans. Georgia is another one of these states that could be the difference maker in 2024. And we need someone there who is going to play essentially no role in determining who won as governor of that state. And we are talking about Stacey Abrams, the Democratic challenger in Georgia, and the incumbent governor, Republican Brian Kemp. We are moments away from the start of this debate. Now, how is this race looking? I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. It's not looking great, okay? So on average right now, as you can see here, the incumbent governor, Brian Kemp, leading by an average of 5 points, 51 to 46. And indeed, with 51%, he would be over that 50% mark. But this is, we don't know these polls are based, first of all, part of +9 is from a right-wing leaning poll, the Trafalgar Group. If you don't include that, it's more like +3.5. That's number one. But number two, all of the likely voter models used in this polling are not accounting for, and here, understand the word I'm going to be using, the possibility, not the certainty, the possibility of Roe v. Wade really motivating people to get out and vote for Democrats in a way that the likely voter models and employed by pollsters are not accounting for. That's the possibility. Very important word. So this is where we are right now. When she's on, Stacey Abrams is really good at this debating thing. Here is a part of a debate from, was this 2018? Now I don't remember. Yeah, I believe this was from 2018. Check this out.
My question is, why are you encouraging people to break the law for you in this election?
Mr. Kemp, you are very aware that I know the laws of Georgia when it comes to voting. In fact, I am one of the foremost experts in the state on expansion of voting rights. And I have never in my life asked for anyone who is not legally eligible to vote to be able to cast a ballot. What I've asked for is that you allow those who are legally eligible to vote to allow them to cast their ballots. And in fact, we took you to court in 2016, and a federal judge said that you illegally canceled 34,000 registrations. You use the exact same system, the exact match system that is under dispute right now. Now, I realize that in the next response, you're going to say that it's a function of my organization because your tendency is to blame everyone else for the mistakes that you make. My responsibility as a leader is to see a problem and try to solve it. When I saw that we had 800,000 unregistered people of color in the state of Georgia, I started an organization that has reached into every county and increased those registrations. When I saw that people were being unlawfully denied the right to vote, I worked to make certain that we held you accountable. And as the next governor of Georgia, I will continue to do my job to make certain that every legally eligible vote that gets cast gets counted.
Yeah, she's quite good. She's quite good. So I am very much looking forward to this debate. Anyone can have a good day and a bad day. And if we've learned anything covering debate after debate so far this election season, it's that sometimes you expect people to do terribly and they are able to survive. Herschel Walker. Sometimes you expect people to do really, really great and they don't do so well. That includes Raphael Warnock. That includes Mark Kelly. That includes Tim Ryan. So we will see what things look like in just a few moments. Also want to remind you that tomorrow night, incumbent Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio will be debating Democratic challenger Val Demings. I will be live with that. And it's going to be probably also a very interesting debate. Okay, let's welcome a few people. I do want to say thanks to Andrew Culp and Jason Sickmeyer, who just gifted 2 subscriptions on my website, joinpacman.com. Also, very important, Alice Maravillas, as well as Office Drummer, whose Twitch stream I've recommended, re-upping Twitch Prime subscriptions, putting us at 4. Where are we over here? Is it over here or no? There it is. Putting us at 4 folks. Let's get to 100, and we can use the coupon code BigVoting22 on my website. Oh, by the way, guys, there has been an explosion in anti-Semitism targeting me in the last 2.5 hours because I correctly and accurately described Kanye West's recent rant as the most anti-Semitic rant I've seen short of actual Nazis. And I'm already seeing, I don't know, like this comment, so you feel personally attacked by what Kanye said. It's that has nothing to do with anything, okay? Mods, let's just keep an eye out on things that could be an invasion of anti-Semitism here, because judging by the emails I've been getting since this video went live a couple hours ago, we might be very, very much in for it tonight. Okay? Yeah, everybody just be prepared for that. Also, thanks to Rated R Roy for the Twitch Prime subscription. You are number 5, and we've got files opening and all sorts of different stuff. Okay. Let's get to a couple of interesting clips that I have here for you. Herschel Walker may be pointing to possible time travel as the explanation for this completely insane abortion-related scandal. The new line from Herschel Walker is, okay, fine. The woman who claims I urged her to get an abortion and paid for it, she is the mother of one of my kids. And yes, I did send her a $700 check. And yes, that is my signature on the check. But I sent that because she's the mother of my child to help her. The problem is it was years before the child was ultimately born. Is time travel the explanation? Maybe. Let's take a listen.
This is still a lie because she's the mother of my child. So you're going to see me a check or somebody giving a check. So that I'm saying it's a lie.
Do you know what this $700 check is for?
I have no idea what that can be for.
Is that your signature on the check, though?
Let me see. It could be. It doesn't matter whether it's my signature or not. Yes, that's my check.
That's his check. So listen, guys, it doesn't matter that he sent the $700 check at a time when his eventual child didn't exist. He clearly suspected that even though that pregnancy was being terminated, at some point in the future, that very same relationship would lead to a pregnancy and a kid, and he was just sending the money ahead of time. How does that sound believable? Is that a possible explanation? Time travel, could that be it? Okay. Then the very same Herschel Walker was asked about the badge thing, and he's insisting that the badge he pulled out during the debate the other day was real, I guess, and his explanation is totally incoherent.
Let's talk about that moment at the debate where you flashed the badge. I don't know if you have the badge with you, but a lot of people are wondering, what was that badge? Do you have
that is a
arresting
legit
authority?
badge?
What is it?
Okay, it's a legit badge, he claims.
That's a badge that I was given by a police officer. And
It was given to him by a police officer.
I do have the badge.
You have it.
I carry it with me all the time. It's a real badge. It's not a fake badge. It is a real badge.
Who gave you the badge?
This badge is from this badge. Now I have badges all over Georgia.
Is it possible that Walker is such a good undercover officer for the FBI and a dozen police departments that they just don't even know it? Is that a possibility?
Even from Chatham County, I have from Chatham County, which is the county from I have it upside down, make sure it's right. Which is the county from where Senator Warnock is from. I have an honorary sheriff badge.
Why would you carry that around? So anyway, now he says it's an honorary sheriff's badge. This is of no value. You know how sometimes this is a crazy analogy, but this is where we are in American politics. You know how sometimes when a kid goes on a plane, especially in the pre-9/11 days, the pilot would give them some wings that they could wear? You might be shocked to hear that doesn't put you any closer to actually being a real pilot, that an actual pilot handed you those wings. It doesn't make you a real pilot. This is kind of similar.
From that county.
Where's this one from?
This is from my hometown. This is from Johnson County, from the sheriff of Johnson County, which is a legit badge. Everyone can make fun, but this badge give me the right. Let me finish. If anything happened in this county, I have the right to work with the police and getting things done.
Okay. Did you guys notice that he just said something that doesn't mean anything? If anything happens in this county, I have the right, and it's they talk about all these people are claiming rights that aren't really rights. I have the right to work with the police. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't have any meaning whatsoever. This guy is sadly very, very, very disconnected from reality, and it doesn't bring me any pleasure to mention that. Okay. Super chats coming in. No super chats coming in. All right, that's okay. We're going to continue. We have a lot of other things to look at here. You know how the right loves to talk about the left indoctrinating children? Here's an ad for horrible right-wing indoctrination of children. Check this out.
Hey parents and grandparents, as we wait to see what's next for President Trump, Mike Huckabee's education company wants to help your kids learn all about President Trump's greatest achievements during his first term.
Mike Huckabee wants to help your kids learn. It's already dicey. About Trump's greatest achievements. I don't know, guys. There seems to be a page about The Apprentice.
That's why we're giving away the Kid's Guide to President Trump for free.
We're giving it away. You don't even have to pay. People would pay.
This fun Kids Guide will help your kids to understand everything President Trump has already accomplished.
Without this, they wouldn't be able to understand it. But with this, they'll be able to understand it.
For America. What's more, it's part of a very special gift bundle that includes a free kids magazine and a free video lesson too. To learn more and order this free gift bundle, just visit freetrumpguide.com.
Wow, freetrumpguide.com. Let me see if I can pull that up. Freetrumpguide.com. See what the deal is with that. Yeah, here it is. Help your kids learn the truth about President Trump and celebrate America with a free patriotic gift bundle. The Kid's Guide to Trump and then the Celebrate Our Freedom thing. Let's see what Huckabee says.
Hi, this is Mike Huckabee.
Glitchy website. Let's try it again.
Hi, this is Mike Huckabee.
Wow. Jeez. Super glitchy. I'll refresh once. I don't know.
Hi, this is Mike Huckabee.
Yeah. I think it's done. All right. Well, there it is. That's the free. And by the way, guys, they're against the indoctrination of children, just so you know. Very, very much strongly against it. They don't want any of it. Thanks to Matt Jenkinson, Andrew Sousa, and Stefan Thunison, who just signed up on my website, joinpacman.com. They are new members 8, 6, 7, and 8. Also, thanks to Cubamus 2021 for the Twitch subscription. You are new member number 9 today. New member number 9. Very much appreciate that. I would love it if you, and I do mean you, signed up on my website, joinpacman.com. It's quick, it's easy, and you can use the coupon code BIGVOTING22 to get a horrifyingly embarrassing discount. Super chats. Larry says, hey, David, hope you're doing well. But Special Agent Walker, Texas Ranger, wants to see your ID. Don't worry, you can show him one of those Toys R Us police badges to win him over. Yeah, at what point does the Herschel Walker thing become impersonating a police officer? Best part of the Flowers Green debate. Flowers really said Republicans come up to me with tears in their eyes saying, please get rid of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, that I've got to see. Hold on. Flowers, tears. I didn't see that. Let me see here. Oh, hold on a second. Did he really do it? That would be amazing. Maybe he watches the show. Oh, anybody know the time code? Hold on. Flowers, tears. Oh, 9:10. Okay, hold on. Let's see this. This I have to see.
Talk to, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican, independent, or Democrat. I've talked to everybody. And everybody that I talk to, Republicans come up to me every day with tears in their eyes.
Oh, I don't know if that is the most genius trolling in the history of American politics, or if he's just being serious. That is unbelievable. I'm just going to go back a few seconds. That's genius.
I've talked to everybody. And everybody that I talk to, Republicans come up to me every day with tears in their eyes saying, please, get rid of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
This guy, I really like Marcus Flowers. I thought he absolutely crushed the debate, and we covered it on the podcast today, but somehow I didn't see this clip. This guy's a genius.
Sure.
Yeah.
She doesn't represent us. She truly doesn't. And I've heard this time and time again.
They come up to him with tears in their eyes. That is just perfect. Really, really nice. I like Marcus Flowers even more at this point. Free Trump guide, giving away toilet paper to the MAGA masses. I know, well said. If you look at the terms and conditions of Huckabee's program, I believe it actually is $20 a month after the first month. Oh, I'm sure it's not really free indefinitely. Sir, I know the competition is fierce, but in your view, who gets the title of biggest Trump suck-up? I mean, J.P. Mandel, a.k.a. J.D. Vance, is a pretty big suck-up. But I don't know. Marjorie Taylor Greene is certainly one. There's a lot of big Trump suck-ups. It's hard to pick. It really is difficult to pick just one. Okay, we are moments away from the start of this extraordinarily important debate between Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp. Oh, I have one little recommendation for you guys. I really don't do this often. I've done it, a dozen times or so. If I have like a newsletter or some kind of thing that I think is really worthwhile, I will recommend it. Okay. There is a newsletter I really want to recommend to you guys today. A friend of mine, Steve Schlafman, now has a newsletter called Light Waves, and it is really, really, really good. The articles are like 7-8 minutes to read. Steve used to be a venture capitalist in the city. Then he became a coach, and he's a writer. These are, I find the articles really, really good. And they're just about like life. I don't even know how else to describe it. So when people ask me what sort of stuff other than books do I read, I read Nick Majouli's newsletter. I like Barry Ritholtz's newsletter for personal finance. Steve's is really, really good. So you can find this at schlaf.co. That's sorry. Let me go back to the beginning. This has nothing to do with Matt Schlapp, by the way. Yeah, very important. SCHLAF.co. And it's free. I'm not selling you anything here. It's just free. And tell Steve I sent you, and it's a really, really great thing. All right, so check that out. I think a lot of people will very, very much like it. Okay. Oh, wow. Memberships are dumping. Wendy Sierna just signed up at joinpacman.com and is new member number 10. Christian Miski just signed up and is new member number 11. And then also Caddy just signed up via Twitch Prime and is new member number 12. Really appreciate the support, and all this insane debate schedule that we've been maintaining is all related to the support for membership that we have seen from so many different great people. All right, do we want to do a couple voicemails before the debate starts? Let's try. It's always a little dicey. Let's see what I've got from the standpoint of voicemails here. Man, I don't know.
Hey, David. My name's David, too. I'm also Jewish. God bless America. I just disgraced by Kanye. I thought he was the best artist of all time.
Oof.
I still think he is, but he's so disgraceful now, what he's done, what he's saying. But this reminds me, I spent time in prison. This reminds me of some of the black culture in prison.
Oh, yeah. The Eggman's talked about how there was some the Eggman has served time in a federal facility, and he said there was some anti-Semitism among the black folks. Listen, we lots of minority groups also discriminate against other minority groups. And we know that the Prop 8 situation in California was partially defeated because of homophobia in the black community. And there's some anti-Semitism in the black community as well. We've talked about anti-trans sentiment among elements of the gay community. All these things exist, and they're all horrible. That's for damn sure. Let's see. Other voicemails coming in. What else do I have?
Pac-Man, what is good?
Oh, this is the San Antonio troll. He usually calls in to criticize me for things I never said that he probably heard on a different show.
Which, yeah. I'm calling to talk about something known as a luxury belief.
A luxury belief. Okay.
Familiar with this? I think you and a lot of your audience are overwhelmingly wealthy, white, and probably in college, suffer from. So let me give you a quick example. So you will sit there with your high-income job in your high-income neighborhood and say, maybe white people have privileged too much from society. Therefore, we should not, we should prioritize other people who aren't white from having. Easy for you to say, look, you get to feel good. People on Twitter, they're like, oh my God, you're so woke, Pac-Man. Oh my God, you're so. Here's the thing, though. You don't, let's say, benefit belief like that. Or you aren't impacted by it. You still have your job. You still have income. You still have your.
What I don't get is I'm not impacted by what? My opinion? I don't even know what that means. But I'm not even really sure what's the claim that's being made here exactly.
You aren't impacted by that. But the people who maybe tie into the social ladder as you are impacted by it. The left and you guys, one of the things you preach about a lot, defund the. Okay, you in your high-income neighborhood.
I think that he meant to say defund the police and he choked. I have never advocated for defund the police. So again, this is one of those examples where he's attacking me for a belief I don't hold. Is he trying to call a different host with
aren't impacted by a rise in crime, whereas people in low-income areas are. A luxury belief, but I think liberals have a problem with that, and it's why Democrats are losing the working class. There's a lot of Hispanic voters, and they're also.
I'm a Hispanic voter. What are you talking about?
Losing the plot big time on crime.
All right. Anyway, that's the San Antonio troll. his move is attack me for things I didn't say. Thanks to Mojan802 for the Twitch Prime subscription. You're number 13 today, which I very, very much appreciate. And we have a target of 100 today. The absolute best thing we all can do right now, because we need strong independent media, is to get those memberships on my website. I will show you how easy it is. Boom. Look at this. Joinpacman.com. You can do monthly or yearly. It's your choice. You hit the sign up button. I know that the coupon code there says Big Voting 22, but let me just show you a different coupon code, which is Obamna.
Obamna.
And then the price just comes right down. They when you're famous, they just let you do it. You enter the coupon code and you just get the discount. And all of you are famous to me because you are viewers. And that's a really, really exciting thing. Let's see who else we've got here dropping in a voicemail. Oh, thanks to Robbie82 for the Twitch Prime subscription. I very much appreciate that. Let's see what else I have. Oh, I do have a voicemail from Whitney.
So do you think that China is working with Spain to make like a look that looks normal, that people just agree it's normal just because it's like, oh, well, there would be nothing about your face that like, oh, well, maybe that person has a cold, like it resembles like the same features as somebody who would have like maybe a stuffy nose or a thyroid problem or,
what?
You know, if anything else is really wrong with your face.
Oh man! All right, I'm going to move on from that. It's pretty wacky stuff. Other super chats coming in. Will says, "Hey David, haven't been on stream in a bit. Glad to see you are still streaming very strongly. Any chance you can shout out my daughter Ari, who has a birthday this Saturday?" Absolutely. Shout out to Ari. I assume it's Ari, short for Ariel. Let's get to the debate, which is starting very, very strongly right now. Yeah.
With WRBL in
go.
Columbus, Georgia. For complete rules on today's debate, please visit the
Let me get
Atlanta
it all
Press
teed
Club
up.
website, atlantapressclub.org/debates. To start the debate, each candidate will be asked 2 questions. Candidates have 60 seconds to answer each question. Chuck Williams, you get the first question of Stacey Abrams.
Thank you, Donna. Ms. Abrams, public opinion polls in our state show support for the right to abortion, Medicaid expansion, and banning assault weapons. You are on the side of public opinion in each of these issues, yet you are behind in almost every poll. Why?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the communities of Georgia. The reason people are on my side are because I'm on the right side of history and on the right side of the issues. But we also know that polls are a snapshot. The question is, who are they taking a picture of? When I'm going across this state, the people I'm talking to are excited about this election, but they also know that they're often left out of the conversation. Students who have found themselves...
Oh God, what just happened? Did we just lose it? What on earth was that? Off air. What the heck? It lasted a minute and then it bailed. Do we have any other streams? What is happening? That was crazy. What the heck? Off air. What the hell is going on? Watch live. This is just an article. The live feed is having issues. Oh God. You gotta be kidding me. GBP live. It's everywhere. Oh, okay. So it's not just, okay. Everybody's having the issue. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if we can get, yeah, it's off air. Wow. Wow. All right. I guess all we can do is wait for it to come back. It seems like all the streams, the live feed is dead. It's dead everywhere. Okay. All right, everybody. It's not an issue here. Okay. The stream appears to have died everywhere. It appears to have, okay. Reuters, live, Kemp. Abrams. Let's see. No, that says off air as well. There's YouTube. Still off air. Okay, hold on. Here we go. I got us, guys. Oh boy, look at this save.
Your question for Shane Hazel.
Mr. Hazel, Georgia seems to be struggling right now in dealing with how to legally take on the issue of cannabis in the state. What do you think needs to be done here? How should Georgia address the issues surrounding marijuana?
I guess a perfect question for a libertarian. We believe that cannabis is a plant that grows from earth naturally, and the hubris that the federal government has shown in making a Schedule I drug while also holding patents on it is one of those things where we find it somewhat laughable. And it is. It is a right of people. It is medicine. It is something that we can add to our industry here in Georgia and really displace a lot of what comes in from outside of Georgia. This is a huge win for Georgia. We have a great agricultural sector. We can grow 2 bumper crops of cannabis every year. The idea that it is still illegal and that Brian Kemp has talked about this and tweeted about it as it is a good thing when we make cannabis bust and cannabis bust only is a real sign that the government in Georgia is using it for the prison industrial complex, for the law enforcement complex to go after communities that would like to see freedom in this area. So it's a right. That's how we see it as libertarians.
Right. Thank you very much. You have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I would just like to make sure people at home know that I have been doing exactly what I told them I would do when I was campaigning for governor, and now that I am your governor. We have been going after street gangs and drug cartels. So the things that we're tweeting out there is when our great men and women in law enforcement are making drug busts, not from recreational users
It's a
and
plant.
other things. But that's what my focus is on.
All right. Thank you.
Isn't this guy horrible?
Greg, please ask a question of Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, Ms. Abrams, in 2018, you didn't concede defeat to Governor Kemp, and you talked to systemic problems with the state's election system. This election, do you commit to accept the outcome of the vote, regardless of what it shows? And do you stand by your use of words like rigged 4 years ago to describe the state's election system?
In 2018, I began my speech on November 16th acknowledging that Governor Kemp had won the election. I then proceeded to lay out in grave detail the challenges faced by voters under his leadership as Secretary of State, including the 10+2 who were arrested in Quitman, Georgia, because they had the temerity to use absentee ballots. I told the story of students who were denied access to the right to vote, even though they had duly registered. 80,000 complaints had come in by that day, and it took 4 years of federal investigation in a lawsuit that was the longest running voting rights lawsuit in the state's in recent history that proved us right. Now, we didn't win every single claim, but we forced massive changes to the election laws. And unfortunately, Brian Kemp and Brad Ratzenberger have decided to restore their greatest hits. Just today, a homeless woman was denied the right to vote in Forsyth County because she did not receive a provisional ballot because she had been challenged. As governor, I intend to stand up for the right to vote. I will always acknowledge the outcome of elections, but I will never deny access to every voter because that is the responsibility of every American to defend the right to vote.
Thank you. Brian Kemp, rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Well, I would just say that Ms. Abrams is going to do a lot of attacking of my record tonight because she doesn't want to talk about her own record. In 2018, in the governor's race, we had the largest African-American turnout in the country. She said that Senate Bill 202, our Recent Elections Integrity Act, what we passed 2 years ago, would be suppressive in Jim Crow 2.0. Just this past May in our primaries, we again had record turnout in the Republican primary and the Democratic primary. In Georgia, it's easy to vote and hard to cheat.
And I'd like to add just a second here, as the libertarian.
30 seconds for you.
Although you will push for people to have access to going to the polls and voting, you're not pushing ballot access. This is a huge oppression for people like the third parties, the people that want to get their people on the ballot. We have, I think, 20% Democrats, 20% Republicans in the state of Georgia. That leaves 60% of people in Georgia unrepresented by ballot access laws that both of them support.
30 seconds, Ms. Abrams.
Actually, to correct Mr. Hazel, I co-sponsored legislation to expand ballot access because I agree with you that third parties should have better access to the right to vote in the state of Georgia. I co-sponsored it with one of our independents in the state legislature.
He never heard of it.
But let's be clear about ballot access and voter access. Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State, and he has assiduously denied access to the right to vote. We know that the right to vote is the only way that we can make the changes we need in the state, the only way we can make the changes we need in this country, whether it's access to the right to an abortion, the ability to take care of our families. We need a governor who believes in access to the right to vote and not in voter suppression, which is the hallmark of Brian Kemp's leadership.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on.
With all due respect, I was called out. I would like to just the record reflect, as my time as Secretary of State, I'm the person that created the online voter registration system in this state, where any Georgian can vote, register to vote 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So for someone to say that we have been suppressive in our state when we've seen turnout increase over the years, including with minorities like African Americans, Latinos, and others, is simply not true. And again, Ms. Abrams is going to lie about my record because she doesn't want to talk about her own.
All right, we're going to move on here.
And that's the case.
We're going to move on here, Mr. Hazel. Jennifer, your question for Brian Kemp.
Governor Kemp, several hospitals and medical centers across the state have announced or gone through with plans to close their doors, leaving a gap in care and a reduction in services at a time when our healthcare workers are already suffering from burnout, from increased demand and workloads. Many are now facing care that will be delayed or unavailable, while our state's capital will soon have only one level 1 trauma center. What will you do to ensure Georgians have access to critical healthcare services and hospitals?
Nothing.
Well, I would just remind voters at home, there's also hospitals being built across this state and new options for people for health care. Look, the AMC situation was something that was thrown on a lot of political leaders, including me. But instead of complaining about it and doing the blame game, I went and worked with Fulton County, with DeKalb County, with Democrats to come up with a solution that put state resources into Grady to help make sure people have the access and the care that they need in our state. And I'm committed to continuing to do that in the future.
All right. Shane, I'm sorry. Chuck, you get the final question to Shane Hazel.
Thank you. Mr. Hazel, you ran for Congress in 2018. That was just 4 years ago. You ran as a Republican. You got less than 30% of the vote in the Republican primary. What happened between then and now that made you a libertarian?
Oh, I actually came back to my roots as a libertarian. We believe in freedom. We saw what the Republican Party was. We saw what the Democratic Party was. They are force and coercion. No matter what they talk about, it's force and coercion. Whether it's certificate of need for hospitals, whether it is taking guns away from law-abiding citizens, it is always force and coercion at the point of a gun from the Democrats and Republicans. To look at life through consent, the eyes that, hey, we can all have transactions. We do it every day in the private sector. 99.9% of us go throughout our day without raping people, without murdering people, without pointing guns at people to take their property.
This is the libertarian delusional stuff that I interviewed a professor about the other day.
Period. That's how I became a libertarian. This is why we're going to send this thing into a runoff. And if people were really looking for something to change, you'd vote libertarian. You'd send a message to both of these parties, because one of these people will most likely be the executive in a rigged system, that you want to be more free.
Thank you. That concludes the first round of the debate.
Wow.
The candidates will now ask a question to each of their opponents. Candidates will have 30 seconds to ask the question, 60 seconds to respond, and the candidate who asks the questions will have 30 seconds for rebuttal. By random selection, Brian Kemp, you may ask the first question to Stacey Abrams.
Well, thank you very much. As many people know, I have over 100 sheriffs endorsing my campaign, several of which are Democrats. And my question for Ms. Abrams tonight is how many sheriffs statewide have publicly endorsed your campaign?
Mr. Kemp, what you are attempting to do is continue the lie that you've told so many times. I think you believe it's the truth. I support law enforcement and did so for 11 years, worked closely with the Sheriff's Association. I'm probably the only person standing here who's ever actually written a SOP for a police department when I was working for the city of Atlanta. But I have two brothers, one who has committed crimes, and I want his victims to be able to call the police and get the help they need, and I've always supported that right. But I have another brother who has faced being pulled over for driving while black when he was coming back from his job as a social worker. Unlike you, I don't have the luxury of relying on slogans to describe my position on public safety. I believe that we need safety and justice because I love both of my brothers. And like most Georgians, I lead a complicated life where we need access to help, but we also need to know that we are safe from racial violence. While you may not have had that experience, too many people I know have, and that is why I will always stand up for making certain that safety and justice are the conversations we're having in Georgia and the delivery we have as the next governor of Georgia.
She's really
Thank you. 30 seconds, Mr. Kemp.
Well, I would just tell people that, look, I support safety and justice, but Ms. Abrams refused to answer the question, so I'll let you know that the answer is 0. No sheriffs are endorsing her statewide because of her stances on wanting to defund the police, eliminate cash bail, and serving on the boards of organizations like the Margaret Casey Foundation that supports and gives grants to organizations that are promoting the defund the police movement.
If I may respond, because he actually lied there.
Yes,
I do have the support of sheriffs, but unlike Mr. Kemp, I do not make it my plan to list every person who supports me. I have the support of sheriffs, I have the support of advocates, I have the support of victims, I have the support of those who want to be treated fairly in our system. I have to have conversations with the entirety of Georgia. I don't have the luxury of being a part of a good old boys club where we don't focus on the needs of our people. And that is why my mission has been to put out very concrete plans explaining how I will serve justice, how I will serve safety, and how I will serve the citizens of the state of Georgia.
30 seconds, Brian Kemp.
Well, look, I would just tell people, I know Ms. Abrams is upset and mad because these are things that she said. This is not me making.
Is this like an angry black woman type comment?
In interviews that she's done, and she's sitting on organizations that you can go look at the facts yourself. And that's why the men and women in law enforcement want a governor that is going to stand with them, who has been with them, not only to have their back, but also stand shoulder to shoulder on things like civil unrest and going after street.
I know she's mad. She is?
Thank you very much.
What?
Stacey Abrams, you get the next question for Shane Hazel.
Mr. Hazel, Republicans and Democrats have raised the alarm over the rise in the Chinese Communist Party-backed companies purchasing American farmland. To date, they've purchased more than 1 million acres of farmland in the state of Georgia. Would you agree with Mike Pompeo that allowing those purchases in the state of Georgia is a sign of madness? And would you be concerned about the national security implications of the Chinese Communist Party purchasing this land with the support of the state of Georgia?
I see the setup for this question. I understand why it was projected at me. As libertarians, we believe that you own your property and that the state can't take it away from you and can't sell it or can't determine who you sell it to. The CCP, obviously, which is going through its own internal unrest right now, I believe is probably purchasing this with things like central bank digital dollars and yuan, which are also coming down to a critical nature where people are in uprising.
He's like, I know why you asked me this question. And she's like, I do too, based on the first 30 seconds of your answer.
Accepting fiat, CCP, yuan in Georgia as a actual currency. It's about as good as the U.S. currency, the fiat currency that we're about to have hoisted on us in terms of a CBDC. I'm not going to tell you or anybody else as governor how or who to sell your property to. And I imagine that in the end, the free market will work itself out.
Thank you. Stacey Abrams, 30 seconds.
The state of Georgia is watching our farmland be purchased by the Chinese Communist Party. And while that is not normally a conversation that we have, it is something that we should be concerned about. Agriculture is our #1 industry, and Georgia has 13 military installations. The fact that the state of Georgia is working with the Chinese Communist Party, using one of their technologies that both Donald Trump and Joe Biden have warned is very much a national security threat, should be of great concern to every Georgian. This is not about being concerned simply about who's owning the land, but it's about how much access to our information they have because of that state.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, you may ask your question of Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. The military-industrial complex is a big problem. It is. And the fact that we have people trying to come here to, I don't know, get a backdoor into our military, I think one of the things we should be talking about as Georgians and as executives is the Defend the Guard Act. where our military has been used very, I don't know, haphazardly around the world to go and take resources from the Middle East.
Is this a question?
Now in
Mr.
Ukraine.
Hazel, your question.
This is my question to who?
To Stacey Abrams.
Oh, we've already switched gears.
Yes.
My question to you, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I have hearing problems, guys. My question to you is, I mentioned CBDCs. As the executive of Georgia, when we come into a CBDC from the Federal Reserve, will you, as the executive, accept this CCCP style currency?
I believe that the conversation about currency is a complicated one. And part of the challenge we have is how this currency is transmitted, the very real security threats with digital currency, the hacking and mining of that digital currency should concern all Georgians. As the governor of Georgia, I will work very closely with the Federal Reserve, but also with the innovators and the entrepreneurs who do see an opportunity. But before we take a step forward that could put us at risk, our responsibility is to understand the complexity of what is happening with these transactions. And as exciting as it is, we also know it's deeply problematic when we do not have the adequate safeguards in place. That's one of the reasons I've raised concerns about WeChat and about the purchase of farmland. But what we know overall is that we need a governor who's conversant in these issues, who understands that, for example, in the state of Georgia, we have access to $3.5 billion in American currency that could be delivered tomorrow to save our hospitals and to save our lives. But our current governor has refused to accept those dollars. My intention is to do what's best for the state of Georgia every single day.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, you get a
She's really knowledgeable about so many issues.
Got us into the mess that we are in right now. Because of a centralized fiat currency, it will be absolutely worthless.
God.
They will be dangling carrots in front of the governor, in front of the executives, in front of the legislature to do exactly what their mandates are. If they are mandating that they take the property of people, then they will do it. If they want to invade your homes, your privacy, your businesses, they will do it because of CBDCs.
All right. Stacey Abrams, please ask your question to Brian Kemp.
Absolutely. Mr. Kemp, under your leadership, there is currently a 100-year gap between minority-owned businesses and majority-owned businesses. Although minorities comprise 48% of the population, they only generate 12.2% of the business revenue in the state. And under every analysis that we have seen, it will take 100 years to close that gap, given the current process that you have in place. You served 4 years in the Senate, 8 years as Secretary of State in charge of businesses. You served 4 years as governor. What are your concrete, specific, targeted plans to decrease and address the racial equity gap currently facing contracting and purchasing for minority-owned businesses?
Governor Kemp?
Well, I would remind Georgians that the first part of my plan was keeping our state open for business and allowing all business people and working Georgians to work when Stacey Abrams was criticizing me for doing that. Also pushing to get our kids back in the classroom when, again, Stacey Abrams was criticizing me for doing that. A lot of Georgians, including African Americans and other minorities, cannot go to work if their kids are not in the classroom. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the country for African Americans. We also were named we're in the top 10 of the states for black entrepreneurship in the state of Georgia. So our economy is incredible, and we will continue to work with all of those entrepreneurs in the days ahead and working class Georgians, because we are the ones that have been fighting for you when Miss Abrams was not.
So what
we were
will he
giving
do?
tax refunds. We were doing tax cuts. We were suspending the gas tax to help you deal with 40-year high inflation when she was criticizing us.
Stacey Abrams, 30-second rebuttal.
I would point out that Mr. Kemp did not address the needs of purchasing and contracts for black and brown-owned businesses, which is what he has refused to do for the last 16 years. We know that $10.9 billion has been delivered to the state of Georgia through 2 recent acts at the congressional level. And Brian Kemp does not have a plan for making certain that people of color have access to those contracts, access to purchasing. It was only in July of this year that he finally acknowledged that there might be a problem. He has said that we need to study it. I would tell him, just cheat off of my paper. I know the answer. We need a governor who actually believes in equity, racial equity, economic equity in the state of Georgia, and I will deliver.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, please ask your question to Brian Kemp.
Brian, in 2020, on April 2nd, you locked down Georgia, threatening peaceful people with force and coercion. You called people in Georgia non-essential, and it killed millions of jobs. You bent the knee to Big Pharma and pushed a vaccine that was untested on people, and it has killed people. They have lost their loved ones. You've allowed bureaucracy to invade our businesses. And then you had the audacity to brag about record tax revenue. You want to say sorry to anybody?
So is that a question or?
That is a question. Do you want to say sorry to anybody?
Well, look, I'll be glad to talk about my record because obviously Mr. Hazel is gravely mistaken. If you look at the executive orders that I signed, we said every business in Georgia was essential. There was a few that we asked to help us stop the spread, flatten the curve, build PPE supplies and hospital bed capacities. Because unlike him, I was getting the calls from hospitals saying, hey, we are out of surgical gowns. We're out of masks. We need ventilators. And we were literally working 24/7 to supply those items while also keeping our economy open in this state. And as you know, I was the first state to open the small parts that we asked to close, and our recovery's been as good as any state in the country. We have had 2 record years of economic development because of our business environment, working with the General Assembly to make sure that we're putting Georgians first and Georgia businesses and Georgia.
His last thing was how great he did by keeping everything open, and now he's like, I mean, it's crazy.
Mr. Hazel?
You should have put Georgia freedom first, period. You didn't have the power to lock down businesses, and you signed the executive order on April 2nd. It was clear as day. I sat there and watched you do it, and I was like, there is no coming back from this. The idea that the default was to lock down Georgia instead of trusting Georgians with their freedom to adapt in a time of very changing circumstances, I think is a tyrant move, and I think the left and right are fascists and communist socialists, whereas we're talking about real liberty, trusting Georgians with those decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Hazel. Brian Kemp, you
Imagine this guy debating Herschel Walker.
For Shane Hazel.
Well, I would just ask Mr. Hazel if he supports the things that we have done because we were open and Georgians were working and we've had excess revenue. So instead of doing big government...
That's our tax money.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't support it because here's the thing is when we get to that point, when we talk about what you're doing...
I was fixing to ask my
finish your question.
Please go ahead.
I would just say, do you support the tax cuts we've done, returning $1 billion of taxpayer money and suspending the gas tax for Georgians to help fight through 40-year high inflation and bad domestic energy policy?
Georgia, I hope you hear me when I say libertarians think taxation is theft. It's your money. It's your property. You should be able to determine what you do with it. I don't support the fact that you haven't ended qualified immunity. I don't support the fact that you haven't ended civil asset forfeiture. I don't support the fact that you haven't ended the drug war. You haven't ended nonviolent crime. You haven't ended cash bail. You haven't ended no-knock raids. You haven't implemented community review boards. And you haven't banned blacked-out cop cars that go after people for more.
Did he say community urea boards?
By the executive to leave peaceful people alone in the state of Georgia. That's my message to both of you, to everybody in the state who wears a badge. Stop going after peaceful people.
Mr. Kemp, 30-second rebuttal.
Well, that's simply not true. As Georgians know, I have followed the laws and the Constitution of this state. And I ran on going after criminal street gangs because I knew there was an issue in our state when other people wouldn't even talk about it and the media wouldn't ignore.
Everybody who's here should get equal time, but what sucks is that the libertarian guy has no shot. And I really want to hear from Stacey Abrams going back and forth with Kemp is what we would learn from.
We're going to go after bad people that are selling bad drugs and killing our children and our other citizens.
The free market way to do that would be to allow cannabis and psilocybin to handle the mental health issues.
Okay, well, I wasn't talking about cannabis. I was talking about deadly
Gentlemen,
stop busting them then.
Gentlemen, we're going to move on. That concludes our second round. For those just joining us, this is the general election debate between candidates for governor. We will now go back to the panel to ask questions to the candidate of their choice until we run out of time. As a point of moderator privilege, I may also ask questions of the candidates, and I will determine when a rebuttal is appropriate. And I'm going to use that moderator privilege right away to ask some education questions. Mr. Kemp, if reelected, you've said you'll push for $65 million dedicated to fighting pandemic learning loss, hiring more counselors, and recruiting teachers to fill shortages. How do you respond to those who say you should have prioritized those academic-related issues over laws dealing with divisive concepts, parental laws, and obscene books in the past legislative session? Even those who were pushing for those laws, in the end, say they don't have much teeth.
Well, look, we have been pushing for those things. You can talk to school superintendents around the state. We have worked with them really over the last year and a half, 2 years on learning loss. We've been working with our superintendents and other education groups. We've passed 2 different pieces of legislation dealing with the teacher pipeline, which is getting more teachers into the system. Our plan is working with higher education, including our HBCUs and others, to make sure we're getting more of the right people and more of them in the classroom to help mentor our children. This is really just the next step in the process. We are funding K through 12 education in this state more than we ever have per pupil, ever. And that's coming off a recession during the middle of a global pandemic. This includes my promised teacher pay raise of $5,000 that we completed in my first full term, despite having to deal with 2 years of a global pandemic and a recession. So I think it's incredible what we've been doing, but make no mistake, we have more work to do, and I'm committed to doing that.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, would you tell us your education plan?
Yeah, it's to put it in the hands of the private sector. The government education system that came from Prussia in the 1700s has obviously failed Americans. We don't understand economics. We don't understand our civil culture. We don't understand.
This guy's a parody of himself.
On behind the scenes in politics. The idea that we want to privatize everything as libertarians is good for education. Think about Walmart having a monopoly on force to teach your children. It's insane. The idea that we do this with a government has side effects. We see them on it.
How is it a monopoly when private schools, charter schools, and homeschooling exist?
Our parents to seek out the best education for their kids. And we also believe that they have the responsibility to do so. So to help fix this nation, start here in Georgia, is get the government and the admin out of the classroom and get it out of our lives.
Thank you. Ms. Abrams, in education, you propose a boost in teachers' pay, more state-paid preschool slots for lower-income children and their families, and more. If you win the governor's race, you'll likely have Republican majorities in both chambers. Given what we know about partisan divisions, how will you get your education proposals passed and funded?
So let's begin with what my proposals are. Georgia is sitting on a $6.6 billion surplus. That's money that we have after we've paid every bill, after we've put 15% aside for a rainy day fund. That is money that after we've accounted for increases in population. And I want to invest it in our children and in our families, beginning with making certain that we have pre-K slots. We have 4-year-olds on a waiting list. I've never met a 4-year-old who waits to turn 5. But we can solve that problem with the money we have right now. We can also give an $11,000 pay raise to our teachers instead of a $5,000 pay raise on layaway. We can make certain that we are increasing access to the pipeline because teachers aren't in the pipeline because they can't make enough money to take care of themselves and their families. And that is why under this governor, we have a 67% retention rate. Any other CEO who lost more than 30% of their workforce would be fired. And that is why my plan is to use the resources we have today to plan for today and tomorrow. We've got the money, and we have economists in Georgia and national economists who have looked at my plan, and they say it works. Check my plan out at StaceyAbrams.com. Check my map. It works.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'd just like to let people know that, look, my plan is to use the revenue that we have because we've been open. If Stacey Abrams had been your governor over the last 4 years, you wouldn't have that excess revenue because she wanted the state to stay locked down and criticize me when I opened it back up. We have, in fact, been using this revenue and will do so in the future to do another income tax refund and put the money back in your pocket. We're also going to do a property tax relief grant one time that helps you with rising property values and rising property taxes that the counties are not rolling back.
Thank you very much.
If I may respond, because
30 seconds.
This is going to go back and forth between the Democrats and the Republicans. If they keep attacking each other, I'm going to say
we've got to move on. Ms. Abrams, 30 seconds.
For
Mr. Hazel, we've got to move on.
We're not going to be excluded from this.
I'm not excluding you, but he did refer to her, so we are going to have her speak first.
You're going to take money and property from people that don't even attend your schools because they don't agree with them.
We want to move on. Ms. Abrams?
I want to point out 3 things that were inaccurate. One, I urged caution because any leader should privilege the lives of those they serve. 38,000 people died in Georgia. We have one county where 1 in every 100 Hancock County.
Very libertarian. Whoever talks louder and steamrolls everyone gets to speak.
But I also urge good math. We have the money in our accounts to do what is right. Money not delivered by Brian Kemp, money delivered by federal Democrats, and money that is delivered by hardworking Georgians who have generated the surplus, and they deserve investments in their lives. And the income taxes that we keep hearing about, 50,000 people are getting $500 million. The rest of us are going to see $193.
Thank you.
That is not a good return on
Shane
investment.
Hazel, 30 seconds, please.
It's
and then we have
stolen
to
money.
move on.
All of it's stolen money from people who have property. The fact that we have property tax in America has got to be one of the most un-American things I've ever heard of. There are a lot of us at homeschool because we don't believe in the government school.
He's a homeschooling, anti-vax, taxes, or slavery libertarian. Get the hell out of here, dude.
To pay for a broken school system that we don't agree with. That's
right.
both of you guys.
I'm sorry.
With all due respect, Ms. Abrams called me out again.
All right.
About these
30 seconds, and
I'll
then
be
we really
very
are going to
brief.
move on.
But the federal money that we're able to use right now and spend is because our state was open, and we didn't have to use this federal money to backfill state revenues, which has put us in an incredible position to move forward in our state.
Mr. Kemp, we're one of several states that have had the same exact experience. It is disingenuous to claim
and not having
done
the
this on your
conversation.
own.
We're going to move on.
It's the people's money.
We're going to move on, gentlemen, and Ms. Abrams. Greg Bluestein, you have the next question.
Ms. Abrams, I want to go back to one of Donna's underlying questions, which is the how issue.
Absolutely.
You've staked out dozens of policy proposals that would have to win approval from lawmakers, including Medicaid expansion, including several of the proposals you outlined here today. But it's highly likely the legislature will remain in Republican control. How are you going to win approval of these measures when in the face of staunch Republican opposition?
Well, I don't actually believe there is staunch Republican opposition. I served in the legislature for 11 years, and every day during my tenure, I worked across the aisle to get good done. They put it in my title. I was minority leader, meaning I couldn't win unless I could work with others. That is why I'm the only person I know of who got an A rating from the Georgia Chamber of Commerce and the Friend of Labor Award for the same work in the same year. The work that I do is working with people to find out how we get solutions. Medicaid expansion is a perfect example. We have 19 hospitals at risk of closure, joining the 6 hospitals that have closed under this governor. We are sending a Brinks truck of $3.5 billion of our money to Kentucky, to Louisiana, to Ohio, because this governor will not accept the money. And the resources that we need in our state will come to our state when we have leaders willing to work across the aisle to bring our money home. But it's more important than that. It's about how do we take care of our families? How do we make certain that we're addressing high housing prices? How do we tackle the issue of gun violence? How do we support our freedoms and protect our people? And we need a governor who can do the math, but also do the morality of making sure we take care of every single Georgian.
Thank you, Ms. Abrams. Governor Kemp, you have 30 seconds.
Well, I would just say that one way we deal with gun violence is to take the bad people that are doing the shootings and lock them up and not in cash bail like Ms. Abrams wants to do. But listen, she's also said that the silver bullet on health care is Medicaid expansion, adding 650,000 people. Well, there's been 600,000 people added to the Medicaid roll since I become governor. And the problem is it's a broken government program that she wants the government to decide your health care that will also kick 200,000 private citizens off their private sector health care.
Thank you.
I may respond.
30-second rebuttal.
Just talk about
he
this.
called
just
her
for a
name.
second.
Ms. Abrams, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
This is ridiculous.
Number one, Medicaid expansion will allow 500,000 Georgians who are working people to get access to health care. That is a good thing in a state where we have people dying every day from cancer, from issues with health, issues with diabetes, issues with heart disease. But number two, the 600,000 people that he references who are on Medicaid, they are put there because of the public health emergency. And when that ends, they will lose health care, which will add more people who are on the streets unable to get health care. Under this governor, we've lost 6 hospitals. We have ambulance wait times that are excessive, and our people need relief, and they need their money back.
I would like to weigh in.
We want to give our panelists a chance to ask more questions. So, Chuck Williams, it is your turn to ask a question. Mr.
It's insane.
Governor, the Democrats have controlled the U.S. Senate for 2 years because Georgia shifted from 2 Republicans to 2 Democrats in January of 2021. One of those seats was held by Kelly Loeffler, a person you appointed to that post. She then lost to Senator Warnock. Do you wish you had made a different choice when you selected Kelly Loeffler?
Well, no, not at all. I mean, I was excited about her candidacy. I know she worked extremely hard. It was a very challenging environment in 2020. And I think it goes to the point that in 2020, watching that election, I learned a lot of lessons. You know, a lot of the things that we haven't been doing with the ground game from a political perspective, we are now doing. Making sure that when we're campaigning, that we're making sure what we know the differences are with the candidates, but also we got to be for something. And what I'm for is doing another $1 billion tax rebate, for doing property tax relief grants, for continuing to strengthen rural Georgia and run rural broadband like we have been doing, that we started this program long before the pandemic hit. Doing economic development projects where 74% of the investment of over $30 billion over the last 2 record years is going to rural Georgia. Over half the 80,000 jobs that are going with those projects outside the 10 metro counties in rural Georgia, and I'm committed to doing that in the future.
Mr. Hazel, if you would like to have 30 seconds, you may.
Thank you very much. The state of Georgia needs a governor who understands econ. The $200 trillion of unfunded liability in this country, as a veteran, understanding that we have a veterans health care system that is in shambles. They treat you as a liability, and they will throw pills at you every chance they get. They won't actually address your health. There is no way on earth we're going to expand that to the rest of the 99% of the country. It's a fairy tale, and it doesn't exist. That's why the economy is collapsing, because they continue to print trillions and trillions of dollars and hike interest rates at the same time.
Thank you very much.
By what metric is the economy collapsing?
To ask a question.
This question is for each of you. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing Georgia and Georgians, and how do you think it should be addressed? What will you do as governor to address that challenge?
Let's start with you, Stacey Abrams.
Gang crime is up. Gun violence is up. Housing prices have skyrocketed. Equity investors have purchased 30% of the homes in the state of Georgia. We have 1.4 million people without health insurance who cannot see a doctor when they need one. We live in a state of fear. And this is a governor who, for the last 4 years, has beat his chest but delivered very little for most Georgians. He has weakened gun laws and flooded our streets. He has weakened our privacy rights and women's rights. He has denied women the access to reproductive care. The most dangerous thing facing Georgia is 4 more years of Brian Kemp. We need a governor who actually understands the math and the morality. We need to understand that, yes, we have veterans, like Mr. Hazel pointed out, who can't get access to health care, in part because they're not fully covered by VA benefits and will only get health insurance if we expand Medicaid. We have seniors who are being forced out of their homes because this governor refuses to address the issue of housing crises. In fact, he told an audience that he didn't want to upset investors by giving local authorities control over housing prices, letting them address the issues. We need a governor who will do more for more Georgians.
I want to give each one of them a chance to answer Jennifer's question. Shane Hazel.
The biggest problem facing us is the economy. But to quote the great Rothbard, the man who puts all the guns and all of the decision-making power into the hands of a central government and then says, limit yourself, is he truly the impractical utopian? The idea that the economy isn't the biggest problem that we have in Georgia is because people don't understand economics. These guys don't understand economics, from Republicans or Democrats, or else we wouldn't be in the hole that we're in terms of trillions and trillions of dollars. What we need to do is get back to basics, Austrian economics, where we get rid of this cancer that has invaded every transaction that we have through a fiat currency system, creating freedom for everybody in Georgia is the default position. Not more government, not more programs, not more policies, not more point at the barrel of a gun, force and coercion. It is freedom.
All right. Brian Kemp, your answer to the question.
Well, I'll first, since I didn't get a rebuttal after being called out, would just let Georgians know again that my record's being attacked because Ms. Abrams doesn't want to talk about her own record. If you look at what the state of Georgia and our First Lady, Marty Kemp, has done to raise the awareness on ending human trafficking, going after the perpetrators and supporting the victim, as well as us working with the General Assembly to give Medicaid benefits to birthing mothers up to a year after having that child and other things, shows you our state that we value life and that we care. But in the future, my focus is going to be what it was when I opened the debate, and that is helping you fight through 40-year high inflation and disastrous policies in Washington, D.C. I would remind you that Stacey Abrams campaigned to be Joe Biden's running mate. She supports these policies that have raised taxes on hardworking Americans and Georgians when they promised they would not. We're working with the General Assembly to help you fight through that by suspending the gas tax and giving your money back
Thank you
put in
very
your
much.
pocket.
Thank you very much. Greg, your next question.
Governor, I want to stay with you and talk about something that just came up in the last exchange a little bit. Earlier today, you rolled out a new public safety plan that offers a crackdown, or promotes a crackdown on criminal offenses. What it doesn't specifically address is gun violence. Your critics say that your permissive gun policies will only lead to more crime. What do you propose you will do in a second term if you're reelected to address gun-related crimes?
Nothing.
Well, again, we're going after the people that are doing these gun-related crimes. I mean, and that's what we're doing, going after street gangs in this regard. You know, during the pandemic, when I was talking to people about how we were responding and what we were dealing with, I was hearing from educators and athletic directors and other people saying, Governor, we got to get our kids back in the classroom because we're losing them. We're going to lose them a decade of children because these kids that we're recruiting when they're 13, 14, 15-years old to be on the ball field or be in the band or be on the robotics team or what have you, extracurricular activity, they're being recruited by street gangs because they're not in the classroom. So those are the kind of things that we are focused on to make sure that these kids are under the right environment. And my new public safety plan is stiffening penalties for gang members that are recruiting our children. And I believe that most Georgians support that, and I'm committed to working with all law enforcement to make a dent there.
Thank you. Chuck Williams.
This is for Governor Kemp and Ms. Abrams. Columbus, Macon, Atlanta, and other communities have benefited from a Georgia State Patrol task force that has helped augment police coverage in those cities and some others over the last year. What can be done to make sure that local agencies that are short on officers can handle these policing duties without having to rely on the state? Ms. Abrams?
Well, you actually asked Mr. Kemp.
I said for both. Okay,
yeah, it's for both.
Governor.
Yeah, look, I'm glad to answer that question. The crime suppressing unit that I asked Colonel Wright to put together during civil unrest when I grew tired of local elected political leaders that wouldn't let their local law enforcement go after dangerous people during civil unrest, that had no chase policies, where street racers and street gangs are terrorizing our citizens. I told Colonel Wright I wanted a plan, I wanted to know how much it's going to cost, and I want to know who we're going to work with. And that's why the State Patrol, GBI, Department of Natural Resources, game wardens, working with the Fulton County Sheriff, who's helped us with jail facilities, the Atlanta Police Department, we went and put a plan together to start going after street racers and going after violent criminals and have more boots on the ground. We've done the same thing in Columbus, we've done it in Macon, we've done it in Savannah, and we'll do it wherever we're needed. This is not our job. We're using funds from the governor's emergency fund to help pay for these dollars. And thankfully, the General Assembly supports that because we've been in the fight when others were not.
Thank you. Ms. Abrams?
Kind of a word salad of buzzwords.
Shoot 6 Asian women going into a gun store, getting a weapon, and murdering women in less than an hour. Street gangs aren't the reason people are getting shot in grocery stores and in parking lots and at schools. Street gangs are one part of the problem, but we have a governor who's weakened gun laws across this state, flooded our streets with guns by letting dangerous people get access to those weapons. Georgia does not have a waiting period. We do not have universal background checks. And one of the few permits that we had that was helping keep us safe stopped 5,000 people who should not have had weapons from getting them, got weakened by this governor with his criminal carry law. As the next governor, my intention would be to actually give the people who do 90% of law enforcement the support they need. We know that they have asked for at least $136 million so they can recruit and retain officers. I am the only candidate who's put in place a plan for at least $25 million in grants, not loans, to go to these local law enforcement officers so they can recruit and retain officers so that their officers aren't working 2 or 3 jobs simply to make ends meet.
Thank you. Before your rebuttal, Governor Kemp, Shane Hazel, you may
very
respond
much
to this question.
You keep going back to guns, Stacey, and I think it's going to be your undoing here in Georgia. Georgia, we're going to have less and less gun laws, whether it's under Republicans or Libertarians. Libertarians don't believe in any gun laws. We believe that you know how to best protect you and your property. And the biggest mass murderer in history is government. It's not private citizens. Most private citizens, like I said before, go throughout their day without doing any harm to anybody. However, the people in the government with all of the guns still go after people with a badge when they shouldn't have to. In Holly Springs, Georgia, I introduced the Helios Initiative, where we got rid of civil asset forfeiture. It was a one-page bill through decentralization, nullification, using the Constitution that made the officers in Holly Springs safer because they don't have to go out there and they don't have to harass people of color while driving while black. They don't have to go out there and look for drugs.
Of color, like you, Miss Abrams.
Because civil asset forfeiture is also the government stealing more than criminals, hardened criminals, from anybody and everybody in the state of Georgia.
Thank you. Governor Kemp, 30 seconds.
Well, thank you. I would just let people at home know the largest, fastest growing segment of the population that's buying handguns and firearms is African Americans and females. You know why? Because the criminals are the only ones that do have the guns. You have local governments that are holding up.
Is he saying the criminals are all white men?
Law-abiding citizens from being able to simply use their Second Amendment right to protect themselves and their property and their families. I will certainly support that.
Thank you.
Mr. Hazel, may I respond?
Yes, 30 seconds.
Let's be clear. I believe that we can protect the Second Amendment and protect second graders at the exact same time. That means that, yes, more people are buying guns, but that's because they think that's the only way to protect themselves because guns have flooded our streets.
Right.
These are communities that want to be safe. They don't want to have to carry weapons. I know how to shoot. My great-grandmother taught me. But I know that the person who is most responsible is the person who holds the weapon. And that is why I will quote Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. And because of the criminal carry law that Brian Kemp signed into law, there is no longer a background check.
The moderators sort of like reluctantly let people speak. Did you see how the moderator was just like, okay, 30 seconds.
Take the guns. That's a great
really
question.
Want to move on.
Well, there is a federal background check. There's a federal background check on every individual that buys a firearm in the United States of America.
Which shouldn't exist either.
That is not true.
Well, the point,
Mr. Kemp,
I understand,
that's not true.
I understand the point you're making, but the point is, when you buy a firearm, you get a background check.
Mr.
And
Kemp,
none of the laws changed.
Mr. Kemp, if you purchase a weapon in Georgia through a gun sale or a private sale, through a gun show or a private sale, you are not subject to that.
We're going to have to move on.
Interrupted you tonight.
I apologize.
Candidates, we have to move on. I'm going to allow Jennifer to ask what's going to be the final question in this round.
Oh my God.
A study recently showed frustration among our nation's teachers with political interference into education, with issues like COVID-19 and critical race theory presenting additional challenges to a profession that's already dealing with low pay, falling interest, and people leaving. What would you do specifically as governor to recruit, retain, and empower educators for schools across the state of Georgia for each of you?
Shall I?
All right, we'll start with you, Ms. Abrams.
And let me again apologize to Mr. Kemp for interrupting. This is a very important topic to me, and I apologize for my outburst. I will say that when it comes,
he's too polite.
And we know teachers are leaving the workforce. We have a 67% retention rate, but 70% of our teachers have said they would not recommend teaching to their colleagues. That is because of low pay, because of overregulation, because of high stress, and because they believe that they are being told to teach to a curriculum that does not reflect the values and needs of our students. When a teacher is told that you have to lie to a child, which is what happened with the divisive language, the divisive concepts legislation, teachers are not being able to teach a whole history of our students. They're not able to tell their children what they need to know. As the next governor of Georgia, I will repeal those laws. I will increase pay, and I will make certain that all of our teachers can start and continue through their time well paid and well protected and well.
Will anyone use the Trump line on this issue?
No teacher should ever be allowed to teach transgender.
Well, I would just say this is exactly why I did the $5,000 teacher pay raise that I ran on in 2018. We've also done a Parents' Bill of Rights to have parents fully engaged with their schools to make sure that they know what's happening in their kids. Dude. Quite honestly, people are tired of their kids being indoctrinated in the classroom. Right. But we've also worked with our educators on these pieces of legislation to make sure that they make good common sense.
It's a piece of it.
But I would also tell you, that people are tired of these issues like not having fairness in girls' sports and other things. And quite honestly, it's woken a lot of people up. So we got to continue to have good conversations like we've done with our teacher pipeline legislation, like we're doing with helping 9,000 parapros get fully certified.
That's a major issue. Boys and girls sports.
5 seconds.
Your question raises a lot of interesting points. A lot of these teachers, like my own wife, has left the profession of teaching to homeschool, to go to private school,
Teachers
to
like my
do
wife
something
have left.
outside of this narrative where admin from the federal government and the state government is forcing them to teach things they don't want to teach to test. They can't stand the administration who makes six figures. It is bloated. It is absolutely gotten out of control. We need to nullify property tax. We need to let people get out of the system. We need to allow the private sector to work, because before education was put under the thumb of government here, we had some of the brightest, most well-read people in the entire world, and that's what we need to bring back.
All right, thank you very much. We are running out of time, so that is all the time we have for questions. Each candidate will now have only 40 seconds for a closing statement.
Oh, my
And
God.
Brian Kemp, you get the first closing statement.
Well, first of all, let me thank the Atlanta Press Club for having us. When I ran for governor in 2018, I promised to put hardworking Georgians first ahead of the status quo and the politically correct.
I failed.
I said shortly after being sworn in, I would work hard as your governor every single day for all Georgians, whether you voted for me or not. I'm so optimistic about the future of our state. The lowest unemployment rate in the history of the state, the most people working, and economic opportunity in all parts of our state, no matter your zip code or neighborhood. Stacey Abrams said Georgia's the worst state in the country to live. Well, Marty, the girls and I disagree. We think Georgia's the greatest state in the country to live, work, and raise our children, and that's why I'm asking for your vote and support to keep it that way. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Stacey Abrams, 40 seconds.
I too want to thank everyone tonight for your support. And I want to point out that Brian Kemp did make promises. He promised to keep us safe, but crime has gone up. He promised to protect us, and yet he's attacked our freedoms. He has promised to take care of our families, and yet the rising prices in Georgia are rising because he refuses to expand Medicaid, because he refuses to tackle the affordable housing crisis that we have, and he's sitting on $400 million of our money that he will not spend to keep us under roofs and in our homes. As the next governor, I want us to have more money in our pockets, more protections in our lives, more freedoms in our days, and more opportunity in our communities. I see all of Georgia, and as the next governor, it will be my intention to serve all of Georgia. I encourage you to go to my website, StaceyAbrams.com, and please make a plan to vote, and know that I'm asking you for your vote tonight.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, you get the final 40-second closing statement.
Georgia, you are essential. We are in changing times. Technology, money, politics are all changing incredibly fast. As humans, our superpower is our ability to adapt to a changing world. This power to adapt, our passion and genius is unleashed when it is free.
This is cringe.
Free from tax, free from government and their lockdowns, free from government mandates, and free from force and coercion. You know best how to adapt and run your life, and that is your right to do so. It is time peaceful people were free to take on the challenges we face. Our message to the government is simple. It's time to leave peaceful people alone. If you believe the government is so damn essential,
We have to go. I'm
stop
sorry.
robbing us at the point of a gun and compete.
That concludes our debate. We'd like to remind voters that Election Day is Tuesday, November
They
8th,
just cut
and
'em
early
off.
voting has already begun. Our thanks to the candidates and
They
to
just
our
muted 'em.
panel of journalists. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for arranging today's debate. For more information about the debates they will host this election season, visit atlantapressclub.org/debates. I'm Donna Lowry. Thanks for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club debates.
What a disaster. Let's see the dynamics and see if anybody shakes hands or if the libertarian guy keeps shaking his head or what goes on. They're not going to show us. So listen, one of the things that happens in these debates is that the format gets in the way of debate. Everybody agrees to 30 seconds this, 40 seconds that, They become so rigidly attached to it that then there's no actual debate. And you need a format. I'm not denying that, but you can actually include, listen, if they could be adults, you could come in and say, hey, listen, we'll have these 5-minute periods for kind of free exchange, but you cannot talk over each other. You talk over each other and we just shut it down. Okay. And we start muting mics To the extent that you all can actually talk to each other like adults, we will allow these, whatever periods. Can they behave like adults? I don't really know. So that's number one. Secondly, an hour is tough, particularly with 3 candidates. You probably should have at least 75 minutes for 2 candidates. You probably need at least 90 minutes. Put a 5-minute break in the middle if you need to do that. And then there's also this issue of, on the one hand, of course, I'm for third parties and on and on and on. We're also 2 weeks before the election, and Libertarian dude is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and has no chance and interrupts everyone, where I really want to hear Abrams and Kemp talk about issues. So, you need to figure out some way to deal with that. I don't know. Listen, bottom line, Stacey Abrams is brilliant. I think she's awesome. She's down 5 right now. In fact, we can look at the latest polling here. She's down 5. Let's see if there's been any new polls. No, still down 5 to Brian Kemp. If you live in Georgia, you've got a lot on your hands because on the one hand, you've got the Walker-Warnock race, very important, and you've also got this gubernatorial race. So we're going to be looking very, very, very strongly at all of it. I want to say a huge thank you to the gifter to end all gifters, S. Prez, who just gifted 74 subscriptions on Twitch, putting us at our goal of 100. Thanks to that. Oh, and you know what? Jason Sickmeyer just gifted one, putting us at 101. On that note, I will see everybody tomorrow, as they say, for the, what debate is tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow is the guy with the little hands. What's his name? Marco Rubio, or Little Marco. Marco Rubio and Val Demings. That's tomorrow evening. If you're watching on Twitch, let's raid Gotham Chess, our friend Levy, who we have not raided for a while. I think it is going to be a beautiful thing, and I will see everybody else tomorrow.